John and Melissa, if you're ready, I think we can get started. Thank you everybody for joining us today on our webinar. We'll be giving you an industry update on coronavirus. John Longstreet and Melissa Bova are with us and we'll be presenting this information to you. Again, we have muted your lines upon entry. We ask that you keep your lines muted during the presentation. We will be using the chat feature at the end of the presentation to cover questions and answers. With that being said, I'm going to turn this over to John to open up the presentation.
Thank you, Hope, and thanks to all of you for joining us today. I'm going to keep my comments on because Melissa has a lot to cover today. We received a huge mountain of information last night on many of the programs that are available or may be available to you, and that's going to be a lot of what she spent all night deciphering and will be covering today. Obviously, since we were last together last Wednesday, things have changed dramatically, and unfortunately, they've changed in a devastating way for our country and for our industry. And so consequently, all of our efforts are designed to try to get you the information you need, and then even more importantly, help you get access to programs that might be able to help your employees and your businesses get through this crisis. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Melissa, and then I'll be back a little bit later to comment on a few things that we're working on additionally. Melissa?
Okay, thank you, John. Welcome, everybody. A few housekeeping things, and then I will jump into items. We have been, as John mentioned, receiving a lot of questions, and while we received more information last night on items, and I'm going to go over everything I know, there are still a lot of unanswered questions. So I'm going to caveat all of the information today that there are some things that we still just do not know yet. And also, as you all have questions, times that by the amount of people in the industry who have questions. So as always, if you send John or I an email, or me especially, appreciate your patience that I will get back to you. It might not be within 10 minutes, but as we're working through all of this and more questions are coming up, we need all of your patience as we try and get the answers that you're looking for and the information that you need. Eric, can we go to the next slide? This is where I'm going to spend most of the time today, obviously, and I'm going to tell you everything I know. I'm starting to call these weekly calls my weekly brain dump, where I tell you everything that I know. And if I don't tell you something, it's probably because we don't know it yet. But today is what we called the starting date of what we call COVID-2, which is the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. This is the legislation. We had a webinar on it last week relating to paid sick leave specific to your employees who might be sick relating to COVID, or who has a child in quarantine because of COVID, or has a child who might not be in school because of COVID. It also allows for paid family leave for individuals because of COVID as well. So this is very strict to COVID. It can't be used for just anything. It is reimbursable by the federal government, and it expires at the end of this year. Hopefully we do not have COVID by the end of this year, but it does have a sunset. So this is not a uniform paid sick leave act for all businesses. If it only impacts those that are 500 employees or less. If you are more than 500, the understanding, of course, is that you probably already have paid sick leave available to your employees. So this is reimbursement to businesses under 500 employees for paid sick leave relating to COVID. Now, I want to go into a change relating to that because it does impact the CARES package in terms of the Families First. I know last week when we talked about this, we were saying if your employees are laid off, this doesn't apply. And that's true. If you have laid your employees off, this does not apply. But part of that CARES Act, that PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program, is an incentive to bring your employees back on. And under the Families First, that paid sick leave is day one from your employees coming back. So if you do bring your employees back, they're eligible for the 10 days of paid sick leave. In addition, and this is a change in the CARES Act, if you bring back, currently family leave is only applicable if they've worked for you for 30 days. So there was a question of, well, if my employees were laid off, they were put on unemployment, I brought them back, they haven't been back with me for 30 days, that has been changed. So now that's an exception. So if you bring back your employees who you laid off, they filed for unemployment, you bring them back, and they decide to take advantage of the paid family leave, which is weeks of leave to care for a child, or if they are diagnosed with COVID, they're eligible to do so. Again, this is all reimbursable by the federal government, but a business that brings back laid off employees will be expected to provide this leave, even if they were laid off and they haven't been back for 30 days. So that's a change that I think everybody needs to be aware of. In addition, there is a poster within one of our daily updates. If you are under 500 employees, that does need to be posted in your business for your employees to see and be made aware of that this program is available to them. So if you are still open and you still have employees and you're under 500 employees, make sure you have that poster up for your employees to see. CARES Act. Okay, I'm gonna spend probably the vast majority of my time of what I know regarding the Paycheck Protection Program. And I want to caveat all of this to you because I had a conversation today with a colleague of mine who works for the PA bankers, and I said, can one of your businesses do a webinar for our members and walk them through, really nitty gritty on the Paycheck Protection Program for our members, since that will be filed through a bank or a credit union or a community bank. And their response was, unfortunately, they were supposed to have a meeting with the SBA yesterday that got canceled and rescheduled to Friday. The banks don't have any more information than we do right now. So a lot of the things that we're trying to get answers on, we are still waiting to get those answers. So while you can start filing for a Paycheck Protection Program on Friday, I would not expect those applications to be processed immediately because the banks are still getting information relating to that. So let me go through. I'm going to start with Paycheck Protection, and then I'm going to try and drill down a little bit into the EIDL program, and I'm going to touch briefly on unemployment. Then I'm going to go through some of the questions I already have so I can touch upon them, and then I'll go to the chat box questions when I'm completed. So let's start with Paycheck Protection. This is for any business that is under 500 employees. It is 501c3s can apply, veteran organizations can apply, 501c6s as of today cannot apply for the Paycheck Protection Program. You can apply for the EIDL program. You cannot apply for Paycheck Protection Program right now for our 501c6s. Another part of this that's key to the hospitality industry especially is that if you are a hotel or a restaurant and you might have more than 500 employees total, but your individual locations have less than 500 employees, you are eligible to apply for the Paycheck Protection Program. Our understanding as of right now is that you need to do an application for each of your businesses. You cannot do one giant application for all of your units or all of your hotels or all of your restaurants. That is something that we are getting clarified, but the guidance that we've received so far is that you will need to apply for that individually. Another key part of this is sole proprietors, independent contractors, gig economy workers, and self-employed individuals are all eligible for the Paycheck Protection Program. On its face, and some of this I know is repeated, it's 250% of your average payroll, or 10 million, whichever is less. So it's 8 weeks of your payroll. You're basically trying to get through 8 weeks of payroll. And it can, and this is, I know this has been very confusing to people, and it's another item that we are trying to get clarification on. This 8 weeks of loan can be applied anytime between February 15th and June 30th. I know that there is some information out there that says once the loan is closed, you have to use it immediately, and we're getting clarification, but the immediate guidance from the SBA is that you can apply this anytime, any 8-week period from February 15th to June 30th. So in terms of getting it to convert to a loan. So if you get it and you want to be forgiven for part of that loan, you can pick any 8-week period to apply for that forgiveness. Again, looking for clarification, but this seems to be the direction that the SBA is going for this. Some other items that I know we have questions or that I'm going to get to. People are eligible, and this is another one we're getting clarifying, up to $100,000 of their salary. Now, the law is a little confusing, so we're clarifying this, but if you have somebody who's making over $100,000, our understanding is that you can go up to $100,000 to be part of the forgiveness program. This is not entirely clear. Another clarifier that we're getting, another question we have is the $100,000 just base salary, or is the $100,000 inclusive of benefits as well? That is not clear yet. These are all things that we are hoping to get answers from the SBA sooner than later. A big thing that I know people are asking about, and I'm going to do my best to try and work through this, is the forgiveness amount. The understanding on behalf of the SBA is that about 75% of that loan is going to need to be used for employee salaries. And then the remainder you can use for your rent payments, mortgage interest, and utilities. But their general understanding and the general expectation is 75% is going to have to be used to bring back your employees for salary to be forgiven. Let's delineate that as well. You are not required to use any of the loan for salaries, utilities. You can use it for whatever you want, but then it stays a loan. It's not forgiven. But there's two thresholds that, again, the SBA is looking at to determine if the loan is being used properly. And one of those thresholds is a determination of how many of your full-time employees you brought back over the 8-week period. That's kind of threshold 1. And then threshold 2 is ensuring that the employees that you brought back aren't being paid, don't have more than a 25% reduction in what they were paid before COVID happened. So those are kind of the two thresholds that they're looking at in terms of determining if you're using the 75% of payroll and meeting that standard. We are looking for some wiggle room in terms of that, especially in the fact that we all know that once you start this 8-week period, you will not be able to bring everybody back immediately. And also looking for some wiggle room and recognition that even if you try to bring people back, people might not want to come back, and we don't want you to be held accountable for that. So that is something that we're looking for clarifying. But as I said, SBA is essentially saying 75% of your loan will have to be used for employee salaries. And second to that is it's based on your full-time equivalents. That's 30 hours a week of your full-time employees that you bring back. And 2, ensuring that nobody is making 25% less than they did before. In addition, you can use some of that loan to pay your tipped workers. That is, you can write that off as part of the loan. So that can be inclusive in the forgiveness part of the loan itself. Let me go back to my notes. And as I said, if you use it for something other than that, it does convert to a loan. That is something that your bank would decide, but it's capped at 4%. And I will say this again, I've been getting a lot of really nitty-gritty questions about the application. And all of this is probably a conversation that you're going to need to have with your bank. And you all need to start reaching out to your banks and making sure that they are SBA partners. If they're not a partner or an approved lender from the SBA, they will not be able to provide this loan to you. But some of those nitty-gritty questions, it's going to be part of your loan application, and a lot of it's going to be up to your bank because this loan does not require any collateral to it or personal guarantees. So it really is kind of how the bank wants to finance the loan. So if you have not reached out to your bank to determine if they are going to be providing this loan, you need to do that now. And if they are not, SBA does have on their website lenders that are approved that you can go to as well. Another item that I want to talk to, because I'm going to drill down into the EIDL program, and then I'm going to go through some of the questions that I received ahead of this call. There are a few questions in terms of if you applied for the EIDL program and but you decide you want to, and you were approved for idle, and you started using the funds for idle, you can wrap that into the Paycheck Protection Program. Now, you can't have both concurrently. So if you used idle funds, let's say April 1st through April 30th, and then you were approved for Paycheck Protection, you can't assess the Paycheck Protection forgiveness for the times that you were using the idle loan. And again, need more clarification, but the understanding is that any remaining portions of your idle can be wrapped into the Payment Protection Program. You would still have the loan, but part of that could be forgiven as long as it's used separate of that 8-week period that you would be tapping into your Payment Protection Program. Second to all of this, and I know we've gotten a ton of questions, that if you apply for an idle, even if you're planning to use the PPP, you can ask for that $10,000 grant. It is a grant, it is not a loan. So, and that will get rolled out within 2 days of applying for that idle, and that's the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. So if you want to apply for that, get that $10,000, have at it, it's $10,000. But once you get the PPP, that $10,000 will be deducted from that loan. So it's immediate cash flow, but it's not like the PPP plus $10,000. It will be deducted if you do decide to move forward with the Paycheck Protection Program. Let's see. Again, there's information that you'll need to provide, and all of this was in our update yesterday that kind of gives you an idea of what you're going to need to be providing to your bank. Again, we are going to have an in-depth PPP discussion once the banks kind of figure out how to get this going, so we will have a webinar for that specifically. Another item that I do want to touch upon relating to idle, and then I'll get to some questions. Paycheck Protection Program is like the better of all of the options because you can write it off, right? You can write off almost to the entirety of the loan if you use it properly. If you go for an idle, though, there are tax credits that are available and delayment of taxes that are available to you. And part of that is the Employee Retention Tax Credit. So that is a refundable payroll tax credit for 50% of wages paid by employers to employees during the COVID pandemic. So it's a tax credit up to $10,000 that you can take for retaining your employee. If you have applied for the idle, you can take advantage of that tax credit. If you are applying for the PPP, you are not eligible for that tax credit. Second, there is a delay, and I'm looking for it right now, of employer tax credits. That is delayed until December 31st of 2021. So you can pay half of your employer payroll taxes by December 31st, 2021, the other half by December 31st, 2022. If you have applied for the idle and you're using just the idle, you're eligible for that. If you are doing the 8-week of the Paycheck Protection Program, you are not eligible for that. There are, for some of our nonprofits that are on this call, there are a ton of grants and funds and pots of money that are part of this CARES package. And it's really up to the Treasury to determine where that money is going to go. So we don't know yet. And that's, I know people are frustrated because they see billions of dollars here and there. We do not know if some of our 501c6s that are not eligible for the PPP would be eligible for that. That is going to be up to the Treasury, and our national partners are working through that. Last part of the CARES package that I do want to touch upon is the unemployment piece part of it. That there were changes made to unemployment. One of them was that states would be reimbursed for that first week that they allowed people to automatically file for unemployment. The second part is kind of a $600 catch-up to get employees back to that 100% of their base wages. We expect that to run through Pennsylvania's unemployment system. In addition, gig workers, sole proprietorships, people that have their own that are self-employed are now eligible for unemployment. But that being said, this has not trickled down to our state unemployment site yet, to our Department of Labor. So none of those items have flowed. The funds haven't flowed. The Department of Labor will update their website when the $600 will become available and when that will start moving through, but none of that has happened yet. So if you own your own business, if you're an independent contractor, sole proprietor, do not file for unemployment in Pennsylvania at this immediate time. Let me go through some of the preliminary questions, and I'll go through some of the others at the end. I did get a question, and I did touch upon this, the $10,000 for the EIDL, that is a grant that does not need to be paid back. The Employer Retention Tax Credit, as I said, is eligible for people who apply for an EIDL. Again, and I'll reiterate this again because I was frustrated by this as well, the SBA continues to reiterate that you can use the PPP any 8 weeks that you choose from February 15th to June 30th. But I do know that there are some things circulating out there that says that it begins on the loan origination date. We do not believe that to be the case. We are getting clarification. Our understanding is you can pick the 8 weeks that you do it. Let's see, what else do we have? I did talk about you can get the $10,000 right away. And again, and I'll say this again, the SBA on its face is essentially saying for it to be forgiven, 75% of that loan you receive will have to be used for payroll. You don't have to, but it won't be forgiven in that scenario. What else do we have that I've gotten ahead of time? I think those are the general questions. And this is another one that people ask, and again, we're getting clarification on. They made it very clear in the legislation that when you pick your 8-week period for the PPP, that you will not have all of your employees back on at that time. So there is wiggle room in terms of when it starts to when it ends that allows you to bring back your employees. We don't know what that looks like, what that wiggle room is yet. There's recognition that there needs to be. We don't know what is the standard they're going to be using. So we are going to know the 8 weeks cannot start on June 30th. You have to use it in a time period between February 15th and June 30th. Again, that $100,000 question, we do believe initially we thought that any employee that made more than $100,000 automatically was not eligible. We now believe that it is up to $100,000, but we are clarifying if that, at the end of the day, if that is inclusive of all of the extra benefits as well. All right, I'm going to run through a few of the questions on the side. Will the payroll protection loan be forgiven if it is being used to pay employees that are still currently on payroll instead of bringing folks back? Yes, but it's based on your payroll from 2019. So that's your standard. So they're basically trying to say you need to get back up to where you were a year ago. So if you're using it to pay, let's say you have 10 employees and you're using it to pay 5, you still need to get back up to that 10 for the entirety to be forgiven. As a business owner, allowed to managers pay 25% that was never laid off. That is a business decision that is all up to you. The PPP application timeframe, as I said, first is use timeframe. This is a clarifier, and as I said, I think we're all a little frustrated that people are saying loan origination date, but again, SBA seems to be saying you can pick your 8 weeks. Is there any strategies to bring back tipped workers that are making more money with unemployment than if they return to work? I mean, this is not, the $600 only goes for a certain period of time. So this is not a continuous flood of money to employees. So is there a risk that employees might say they don't want to come back? Maybe, but then maybe you need to think about if they were the right employees to begin with at the end of the day. But I mean, the incentive is, and this could be a COVID-4 package that I'll get to in a minute, to have employees come back and want to come back. Any owner can file for unemployment. In COVID-3, as far as we understand, there is not a clarifier in there that allows owners to apply for file for unemployment, but we're still telling people to file and see what happens. So we urge you to do it and see what happens with that. PA unemployment guidance in terms of how an employee qualifies for partial unemployment, that would all be through the Pennsylvania Department of Labor and their unemployment site. I know it's crashing, but they do have a lot of information on their website that you can use. And then if restaurants cannot be reopened by 6:30, how can they meet the deadline? I think I said this last week, or I don't know, all the webinars are running together. The goal of the PPP is not necessarily for you to be open. The goal is to bring your employees off of unemployment and pull them off of that role. So technically, I mean, on its face, the feds don't care if you're not open. They don't care if you're paying your employees and they're sitting at home and you're just calling it, you know, sit at home pay. They're just trying to get you to pull people off of unemployment and pay them. So even if your business is not open, the goal of the loan is to bring people off it, and then you can use that additional 25% to pay other items like mortgage, interest, utilities, rent, things like that. All right, I'm going to stop there on those questions, and then I'm going to move forward to COVID-4. We all recognize that we still have a ways to go in terms of packages to get all of you out of this. We're already starting, our national partners are already looking at what we're calling a COVID-4 package. A key part of this package, and I don't think everybody has their camera on, but I hope you all fist pump, is there is supposed to be a $100 billion backstop for insurance companies to provide business interruption insurance. Yay! To actually provide the insurance that you've all been paying for and because of a virus clause have not been able to receive. That is a key focus of ours in COVID-4, is to get that business interruption insurance to you, which would be another influx of operating capital for you to use during this time. In addition, we are looking to expand assistance to our 501c6s. We know that COVID-3 was not as inclusive of that as we wanted. In addition, we might need more funding for COVID-3. We just don't know on its face how many businesses are going to be applying. The goal of the federal government is not to say whoever gets their application in the fastest gets the money. The goal is to get everybody the money. So COVID-4 might contain some additional assistance for individuals, for the PPP and the EIDL program as well. In addition, we are in conversations about the unemployment piece. Great intentions, but I do know I've heard from many of you who are saying my employees won't come back, they're making more on unemployment. So we're looking at maybe some incentives or maybe some phase backs of that $600 as a business reopens in terms of people being on unemployment. So all of that is part of that COVID-4 discussion. And that will probably, they're already starting to work on that up in DC. In addition, they're going to be looking at more assistance to cities and local governments. They're going to need help when all of this is over as well. So I think we're probably looking at a COVID-4, another $2 trillion package on that front. Eric, can we go to the next slide? Thank you. State. Oh gosh. So as you all know, well, if you haven't now you know, on Sunday night, President Trump basically took a step back from his "we want to pack the pews at church on Easter" to acknowledging that this crisis is not going to be over by then and recommending social distancing standards. All of the CDC recommendations be extended till April 30th. So on Monday, and that the federal government, we're not Russia, so they can't force states to do anything. But on Monday, our governor reiterated the same thing. So he did extend the non-essential business closures until April 30th. He has said schools will be closed indefinitely, and that will be reassessed as we move forward. Again, I will say this for my restaurants, you are still allowed to be open, you're still allowed to do takeout, you're still allowed to do delivery. You are still allowed to do curbside pickup. Again, the state continues to recognize that you are a part of the food chain. And to be honest, probably a nice relief to people who are sick of cooking at home every single night. In addition to hotels, and I'm gonna delve a little bit into hotels when I get to that last bullet, because we are making some changes on that front. PLCB, we are banging our heads against the wall with the LCB, and we all recognize that our licensees need product, and that is our top priority right now. The issue that we are running into is that the cleanest way to do this is to open up licensee service centers. To do that, they all need to be deep cleaned. They need to be restocked because everybody bought everything out when they decided to shut down the stores in their infinite wisdom. And then they need to find a way to get the employees to come back and do that. John and I have a call on Friday. It got pushed to Friday because the governor's office has a call with the White House today when we were supposed to talk to them, basically to work with the governor's office in terms of getting state stores open. I know that there's things floating around out there about spirits and restaurants being able to sell spirits. Our goal right now, step one, is to get product for those restaurants that need it, those that have a wine expanded permit and need access to that wine. So that is our top LCB priority. With that being said, for my licensees, I'm going to say this for maybe the fourth or fifth time. If you are a licensee, you can sell up to 192 ounces of beer. You can sell it out the door to go. You can deliver it if you have a transporter for hire license. 192 ounces. You can sell it, deliver it. If you have a wine expanded permit, and only if you have a wine expanded permit, you can sell 4 bottles of wine to go. You cannot deliver wine. You can sell up to 4 bottles of wine only if you have a wine expanded permit. And for all of you that are selling cocktails to go or spirits to go, the LCE is roaming the streets and will come after you. That is still illegal in Pennsylvania, and you will get cited for it. It is not a forgivable warning offense. So reiterating again, cocktails and spirits are not permitted to be sold to go in Pennsylvania. So if you're doing it, please think very carefully, because I had a conversation with the LCE yesterday. That's the state police that enforce the liquor code. They are going after licensees that are doing that. So that's my warning on that front. Also, the $100,000 loans that many of you have applied for through the state of Pennsylvania was a $61 million pot of money. The pot has not been emptied yet, but a lot of your local investment corporations have basically stopped taking applications, or they're putting you in a queue because they think that they're getting more applications than there is money. So if you haven't applied and you're planning to apply, you still should, and you will get put in line, and our goal is to get more funding for that loan to you. As I said, and I'll clarify this again, state loans can be bundled with those federal loans I talked about earlier. They can be bundled with the EIDL. It can be bundled with the Paycheck Protection Program. They're a separate loan. So the state loan right now is $100,000 over 3 years. So you have to pay it off in 3 years. No payments the first year, payments the second year, and then a balloon payment in the third year. So you also want to be careful if you get out that loan that you feel comfortable that you're going to be able to make that payment in the third year. Legislative priorities. We have been working on a slew of items that we think need to be addressed, and I'm going to run through them quickly to all of you so you know that what we are working on with the legislature in terms of trying to get some relief to all of you. As I mentioned, we're trying to get product to our licensees. Currently, the statewide interest-free loans that I mentioned, $100,000, is only for 100 employees or less. We would like to increase that number because we do have, not all small employers are definitely under 100, but I mean, the federal level recognizes 500 or less. So we would like to open up those loans to businesses that might be over 100 employees once we get more funding for them. We are continuing to bang the drum on delaying any sales tax moving forward, in addition to establishing a sales tax holiday. If not after the crisis, during the crisis, we think that this gives you an opportunity for those that are selling to go to compete a little bit more with the grocery stores that do not assess sales tax. Not the most exciting win in the world, but you know, we're going to throw everything at the wall and see what happens. We're also looking at reducing or eliminating other taxes that you're paying right now. So anything to do pushing them back 90 days. We are continuing, as I said, we have legislation relating to business interruption insurance. That is going to be a federal issue, but as I said last week, we're doing an opening salvo, at least on the state, to draw attention to the fact that some of these insurance companies are just, sitting on the side while all of you are suffering. We're looking at delaying LCB license renewals. I know at this moment, if you are up for renewal, the LCB is not renewing. We believe that should be pushed back 3 to 4 more months. Nobody has the $1,700, et cetera, that you need to renew your license. So we're looking to push that back as well. Another key issue that we're working on right now is many of you that have mortgages, your banks have been working with you to delay your mortgage payments. Those of you that might be renting, many of your landlords have recognized the fact that you do not have money for rent, and others have decided that they don't care, or they have bills to pay too. So we are working on legislation that not only prevents evictions, but would stop any late fees or defaults as it relates to your current rent situation. We think that this is really a top priority that needs to be addressed sooner than later for all of you that are paying rent. In addition, delaying utility payments for 3 months. Another item that we are discussing is relating to property taxes, pushing back the 2% discount that you get by paying early and pushing that back potentially to June 30th or later, and then not having the 10% fee for anything after, say, September 30th. So we're trying to push back any of you that are paying property taxes when that would be due. In addition, the federal CARES Act does have provisions in there as it relates to unemployment. And relief of charges, and the state has authorized this. So during this state of emergency for a certain amount of time, no businesses will be held liable for anybody filing for unemployment. I think we all recognize that we will not be back at 100% of employees off of unemployment immediately when this crisis ends. So we're looking to push relief of charges on employers for 1 year to give you time to ramp back up. The last item regarding the state update, and this came out yesterday, I got a call from the governor's office. There is an issue for those of my friends that are in the Poconos in Philadelphia. I know they are having issues. A lot of people New Yorkers in the Poconos are renting short-term rentals, Airbnb and VRBO. They're coming from New York, coming into the Poconos, and quite frankly, the COVID numbers in that area are much higher than what you see on the count because they're New Yorkers that are infected, and therefore they don't count as part of PA's numbers. But it's a huge issue in terms of people renting party houses at this time. So we are looking, and it will probably be announced today, a ban on what we're referring generally to as vacation rentals. And so they would not be allowed potentially for all of April. We're getting more information from the governor right now. We provided them some of our thoughts. This would not impact hotels, motels, bed and breakfast in terms of you being open. It would restrict your guests to be either essential travelers, non-vacationing travelers, healthcare workers, essentially the people, first responders, people that are considered essential, essentially the people that are staying in your hotels, motels, and bed and breakfast now. You can continue to operate. We really are trying to thread the needle here and go after those short-term rentals and those party houses that are occurring. So we will get more information on that today. Like I said, we've provided our thoughts to the governor's office in terms of crafting that in a way that does not hurt all of the great things that our lodging community is doing as part of this crisis. And Eric, next slide. Stay-at-home orders. And I talked about this a little bit more. Why the governor just doesn't do a statewide stay-at-home order. If you were to talk to Steph Otterson, our director of communications, it's driving her crazy that every day we are listing 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 counties that are stay-at-home. We do anticipate the whole state will be stay-at-home sooner than later. This stay-at-home order is really not all that different than what we've been doing all along. This does not change the ability for restaurants that are considered essential in terms of takeout to do takeout. It doesn't change hotels and bed and breakfast from operating. The essential business list is the essential business list. It's really to stop, as I say, the congregating of people. You know, if you go to a parks, you see people playing basketball or out having picnics. This is really an opportunity to crack down. So the local forces, police forces, not finding people, hopefully, as people listen, but really crack down on that congregating and getting that social distancing that we need. So it's not all that different than what we've already been doing, but there is no need, obviously, to go out and do things that are not considered part of your livelihood or your living. So going out to get medication, going out to get food, going to help a family member, all of that is still permitted. But as I said, this does not impact any of your business operations in terms of what you've been doing all along. And with that, I think I'm flipping it back over to John to talk about some of the things that PRLA is doing. And then I'll come back for questions. John, take it away.
Of information. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
You cannot imagine the amount of information that we're sifting through, and the lion's share of it falling onto Melissa's shoulders to sort it out. And we're trying to keep you up to date as much as we can, as quickly as we can. But I just wanted to mention a couple of other resources that we've made available. And I'm going to start with the second one, temporary transitional employment opportunities. These are great or potentially great opportunities for folks that are out of work who you may not be able to bring back on through the PPP program, or who for whatever reason may not be on employment. The first website there, PRLA.org, temp work, is all of the companies, mostly essential businesses, that are hiring and frankly need employees, in some cases desperately. Grocery stores, drugstores, convenience stores, folks like that. And the second one is our typical job board that we're still continuing to post jobs, and there are some jobs coming up that your team can look at. The last bullet, the third bullet, is carryoutpa.com. If you're not familiar with this, get on the site, get your restaurants listed on there. We're quickly getting thousands of restaurants on there. And if you're doing carryout and or delivery, we're doing a lot of social media to get the word out about you. And we want to be able to get a consolidated site there. Of course, there's no charge for this. It's a service of PRLA. So please get on that website, carryout. It's hashtag carryoutpa.com. And then the last one I wanted to announce is something that our educational foundation, the PRLA Educational Foundation, worked on over the weekend. And this may sound like a small thing relative to all of the major issues you're dealing with, but they saw a need to help employees that are distressed with emergency small grant cash needs. And so consequently, they quickly came together with the help of our team, Hope Sterner, Steph Otterson, Ben Fleccia, and created what's being called Hospitality Assistance Response of Pennsylvania, HARP. And I was really excited that yesterday we got our first significant donation to it. Our friend Justin Genslinger at Settlers Hospitality up in the Poconos was able to connect us with Tito's Handcrafted Vodka. And yesterday they made a $30,000 commitment to start the fund. What it's designed to do is to have relatively small one-time grants to hospitality employees that are desperate. They might need groceries, they might need medicine, they might be facing eviction. And we have a grant committee within our PRLA EF board, Educational Foundation Board, has agreed to work every day if necessary to review grants. And as soon as we continue to get the fund built up, that will be available. Aid application will probably be out early next week. We just want to make sure we have enough money to start awarding some grants. We think we'll get overwhelmed quickly. So if you know foundations that want to get involved to help people like this, please refer them to us. Justin Genslinger has also agreed to serve as the chairman of the development committee, which are the people going out and raising money for this fund. We have some really good members of our association that are on that already. So it's a very needed cause, and it's an aside to all of the other good work that our team is trying to do. So with that, Melissa, I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, thanks, John. I'm going to work through a few questions that I've received, and some of them I'm going to be honest and say we don't know 100%. Like I said, $2 trillion is $2 trillion of questions that we all have. There is a question we will be doing. I've gotten a number of questions relating to this, is how will our world look when businesses can start reopening and what will need to be done? We are part of that conversation. I can tell you quite frankly that our governor has not quite gotten to that point of how would this look, but we will obviously be doing training and webinars relating to that. I would say that we will be doing, when we get to that point, hopefully sooner than later, it will be slow openings. We'll be looking at outside seating being allowed, or 50% occupancy, or social distancing within the restaurant. This will not be, you know, flipping the switch. Everybody can open up and act normal again, and we will be providing all of that information as soon as we receive it. A lot of questions regarding owners applying for unemployment. We're telling everybody to apply. We did not get clear guidance in COVID-3 that an owner who typically would not be eligible for unemployment would now be eligible in COVID-3. This is all part of kind of the unanswered question. So we're telling everybody to apply. And if it's not in COVID-3, we're working to get it in COVID-4. We recognize for owners that have been, if you've gotten a paycheck, you've been paying unemployment, you should benefit from it. We just have not gotten clear guidance how our state Department of Labor is looking at that right now. Let me go through a few questions. This is one that I don't know the answer to, and we need to get it. And this is that $600 if it's available to everybody who files for full unemployment or partial unemployment. Again, this is going to be up to our State Department of Labor to really figure out how they want to apply it. So we will know that answer soon, and we do not know that answer today. If an employee is offered employment and refuses to come back, are they no longer eligible for unemployment for refusing employment? This is a tough one, because we've actually, as part of fast tracking unemployment, Pennsylvania got rid of the "did you try to find work" provision, which is what that would cover. So if you went to your employee and said, "I have work for you," and they say no, currently, because we've put that aside as part of a filing for unemployment right now, they could still continue to collect unemployment. What we're looking at is maybe bringing that back in terms of when the crisis is over for employees to come back to work. That's one of the options we're looking at bringing back. Currently, that requirement is not covered, when historically it has been. For seasonal workers that signed a contract cannot collect unemployment compensation, does that now change because of the virus? I would say yes, because, I mean, and to be honest, there's no reason for a business to deny them, because you are not going to have to pay for it. There's no charges against employers during this time. So there's really no reason for them not to, just because this is a unique scenario and your charges are relieved. How is an employee's unemployment compensation affected by the city mandated sick leave? This is an interesting, if they apply, if an employee applies for unemployment compensation, say on March 30th, and the employer pays out paid sick leave, and depending on how much they are, so let's say they have 2 days worth of paid sick leave accrued, they would not get benefits for those days. You can't have an overpayment. And if they apply for unemployment, they get paid unemployment on those 2 days. In addition to paid sick leave, they're going to have to give it back. So they cannot basically double dip in terms of paid sick leave plus filing for unemployment at the same time. Would member partners' guaranteed payment count as forgivable? I don't believe that that would, because that doesn't fit into one of the boxes of payroll, rent, utilities, mortgage interest. So I would say no. But you can, what you're going to do is once you're through that 8 weeks, you're going to provide proof to your bank saying, these are the things that I believe should be forgiven. And the bank will say, this is forgivable, this isn't. And they'll work through that with you. So it's worth throwing it at them, and then if it's not forgiven, then you would have 10 years to pay that off. C4s, I think the goal is to get all 501Cs that were not included in COVID 3 in COVID 4. And then also as an FYI for everyone, it's very important to put COVID as to why you're asking for unemployment. That's actually a really good point. All of these benefits and items that are being done at the federal level is used, is related to COVID. So you need to make sure that when your employees are filing, they're saying that's why they are filing. Any other reason that they're filing, they might not get all of the benefits that the COVID package is providing to people. Should we use member partner salary up to? I would use the up to 100,000 for the loan amount on the PPP. As I said, our national partners have sent in pages of basically clarifying questions, and I know some of you have heard me say it today where I'm like, we aren't sure yet. We do believe you can submit up to 100,000. Urge you to do up to 100,000. You can't, for individual salaries, you can't include more than that. We believe that will be corrected and fixed. So I would suggest that you include, if anyone makes over 100,000, include up to $100,000 for your salary for that. I think that I'll give it another minute or two, Hope, but I think I worked through most of them.
I think one just
Again,
determining the loan amount with payroll taxes.
sorry. Oh,
There's one more question that came in.
yeah, hold on. I have an answer for that one. Hold on. It's in one of my cheat sheets. Let's see. State and local taxes. You cannot include federal taxes. So for payroll costs, it is salary, wages, commissions, or tips capped at $100,000 on an annualized basis. You can include employee benefits, including costs for vacation, parental, family, medical, or sick leave, allowance for separation or dismissal, payments required for the provisions of group health care benefits, including premiums, and payment of any retirement benefit, state and local taxes assessed on compensation. So all of that can be included in your submitted payroll costs. Now, in terms of, you cannot use the PPP and bundle that with the paid sick leave and the paid family leave. And then also for our sole proprietors or independent contractors, your payroll costs would be wages, commissions, income, or net earnings from self-employment capped at $100,000. And all of that is in, if you go in yesterday's email that went out, this is in the Paycheck Protection Program information sheet for borrowers, and this was in the email we sent out yesterday. And then if an employee, and I'll go back to the sick leave question, if they have received paid sick leave, they cannot apply for unemployment on top of paid sick leave. So if they have a week's worth of wages and paid sick leave, they can't file for unemployment if they're still being compensated. So if it's a cash out and you just basically cash out their paid sick leave, that cannot be coupled with unemployment. And that's a clarifier that the Department of Labor put out last week. You cannot get a payout of paid sick leave and file for unemployment at the same time. Let's see, I saw another question that I wanted to answer. Do they have to be tips that are documented? Yes. I mean, that's going to be part of, they have to be claimed. So, I mean, that's a whole nother webinar for tips that are claimed. But yes, it needs to be the tips that you have been paying taxes on behalf of your employees. So that would be submitted as part of your payroll costs. So you can't just say on average, my employees made $18 an hour in tips. It has to be documented in terms of the taxes that you paid on them and relating to that. When do you have to pay interest on this? For the PPP, I think you have 6 months. Loan payments will be deferred for 6 months. And then you would be paying interest, and that's capped. Your bank can determine the interest. It's capped at 4%, but you might have a bank that might give you a better interest rate. That is a between you and your bank conversation that needs to be had.
There was a question about hotel tax.
And as I said, if we don't, I'm sorry?
The hotel tax still needing to be paid on time?
That there has been no county or city, as far as I know, that has delayed hotel taxes to be remitted. That would be a county by county decision, and I am not aware of any county delaying it. I don't know of if any. There are many, if any, hotel taxes to be remitted, but I'm not aware of anybody having delayed those taxes. And as I said, I know you will all have more questions from this, and John and I will answer all of them, so don't hesitate to email us. Don't hesitate to send me witty memes or things to make me smile. That would be fine as well. Those are a nice, change in the email chain. But seriously, I think we all recognize and we know that this is unprecedented. It's probably, I don't think any of us imagined that we would be where we are today. And we're going to continue to do everything we can to support all of you. And if there's something we're not doing, let us know. I mean, the whole team is committed to focusing on this and getting you all through it and all of you reopened and stronger than ever. And I think that's what we're all trying to look forward to at this point, one day at a time.
Great. I think we're at the end. I appreciate all of you joining us today. As always, this is being recorded and we will put this up on our website and be sharing the recording with you through an email. Up on the screen right now is where all of our resources are for the coronavirus and how you can submit questions also if you don't want to go directly to Melissa and John. Thank you all again. Thank you, John and Melissa, for taking time to present this information to everyone. And I hope everybody has a great day. Stay safe.